A former soldier accused of setting up a Beijing-backed militia in Taiwan, the latest on China's infiltration efforts. Rescue efforts in Tibet continue as workers try to save people from the rubble and the frigid temperatures. President-elect Donald Trump announces plans to expand the U.S., including key territory from its neighbors and allies. Plus, we see how a Taiwanese ultramarathon runner prepares for a 612-kilometer race in the Arctic Circle. Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Joyce Zhen. Local media is reporting that a Taiwanese veteran and politician has been detained on espionage charges and may have been working with China to carry out armed attacks in Taiwan. Chris Gorin has been following this story from Taipei and comes to us live now. Chris, what do we know about this case?
Well, not much, Joyce. Very little has been announced officially, but what we do know comes from local media reports. Now, according to those reports, a retired veteran and politician named Chu Hong-yi has been detained on espionage charges along with 7 other people. Now, the reports also say that Chu had been paid for years by an organization in China to recruit people in Taiwan and also to gather intelligence for possible armed attacks against military bases in southern and central Taiwan, and possibly even against the American Institute in Taiwan, or AIT. Now, AIT is actually the United States' unofficial embassy in Taiwan, and it's the planning of these armed attacks that would make this case so unique. Now, another unique feature of this case is that Chu is not only a veteran, but he's also a politician. He's actually the chair of a very small political party in Taiwan. Now, Taiwan has hundreds of political parties. Most of them have very few members, and this is one of those parties. But nevertheless, the Ministry of the Interior, which regulates political parties in Taiwan, released a statement just a few hours ago stating that if these reports turn out to be true, that this would be a national security threat to Taiwan, and this party would be dissolved. So this is still a developing situation, but this is what we know for now. Joyce?
Thank you, Chris. Stay tuned to TaiwanPlus. We'll have more on this story as it develops. At least 126 people are dead from a magnitude 6.8 earthquake in Tibet, with rescue operations still underway. The quake hit a remote region near Mount Everest and was so powerful, tremors were felt in neighboring Nepal and India. Rescue workers in Tibet continue the search for survivors in below freezing temperatures after a deadly 6.8 magnitude earthquake hit the Himalayan foothills. Over 400 people trapped in the rubble have been rescued, but at least 126 people have now been confirmed dead, with over 180 others injured. The quake has destroyed thousands of homes in the remote Shigatse region, where some 800,000 people live in one of Tibetan Buddhism's holiest cities and surrounding mountain areas. The tremors were also felt in neighboring Bhutan, India, and Nepal, and even on Mount Everest, the world's tallest mountain.
I saw many avalanches coming down, seracs collapsing, big chunks of glacier like exploding, and a pressure wave hitting my tent.
First responders here are doing all they can to move in rations, tents, and other supplies as Chinese President Xi Jinping called for all-out efforts to rescue and resettle people. Beijing controls Tibet as an autonomous region within China, but for many Tibetans, their loyalties lie with spiritual leader the Dalai Lama, who has lived in exile in India since a failed anti-Chinese uprising in 1959. Some members of the Tibetan parliament in exile say China is to blame for what they see as man-made reasons behind the quake, pointing to Beijing's mining policies and plan to build the world's largest dam in Tibet.
When you dig the natural habitat, you will have more and more disaster that are all made by man, the Chinese wrong policy.
Beijing rejects criticism from those in exile and international rights groups who have accused the Chinese Communist Party of violating human rights in Tibet for years. Here at the site of the powerful tremor, the focus now is on finding any remaining survivors, with rescuers battling against time and the frigid cold. Devin Tsai and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
As part of exercises ahead of the Lunar New Year, Taiwan's military is showing off how it prepares for conflict using some of the world's most advanced systems. Jaime Ocon is in Taichung to get a closer look at those weapons.
I'm here at one of Taiwan's largest air bases in central Taiwan, where the Air Force is giving us a rare look into some of the weapon systems it uses, not just to defend its bases, but also the civilian population. On display here is the U.S.-made Patriot missile defense system, one of the most advanced systems in the world. In the event of a war, the missile launcher, radar equipment, and command center will all work together to protect the airspace above the country against missiles and enemy fighter jets. Taiwan has almost a dozen of these units scattered across the country, all in nearby major cities and military bases.
我们选的位置的话，就是会符合我们放列的一些要求。那尽量是选营演并良好的，然后幅员够大的位置。那我们平常机动的话，也会有戒护单位实施帮我们实施戒护，主要是以战术控制中心的电脑去评估、实施做接战的动作。
The Air Force is also demonstrating how to quickly rearm and resupply its fighter jets in the event of a war. Personnel here work as a team to refuel and equip live ammunition into the aircraft so that these planes are always ready to go.
这些都是我们平常习以为常的工作，那因此我们都是可以在实现前的10-20分钟完成上述的这些的挂载作业。
Many of the fighter jets here will be moving around Taiwan as part of 3 days of combat readiness drills ahead of the Lunar New Year. This kind of exercise is meant to demonstrate the different kinds of weapons, equipment, and people involved in defending the country. The military says that it's staying on alert and nothing will change in terms of protecting the country as the millions of people in Taiwan get ready for their holiday. Fu Huahong and Jaime Ocon in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
A new report has found that over half the people who experienced sexual assault in Taiwan in the past decade were minors. The National Human Rights Commission is now calling for greater student safety in schools.
打造支持环境，正视儿少声音，正视。
The Commission's report found that over 5,000 minors experienced sexual assault in 2023, an average of nearly 100 students every week. Students were at most risk of assault from their teachers or others in guardian roles. One commissioner who worked on the report read some of the survivor testimonies collected in the survey.
也许你们觉得，因为这里面有太多匪夷所思，你们做梦都想不到一个老师会对学生这样做，学生会对学生这样做的事情。也许大家听的过程觉得很难看，也许觉得不忍卒读、不忍卒听，但是就像刚我跟大家报告的，这些朋友愿意站出来，打开他的伤口给我们看，至少我们要听听他们说了什么。
The Commission said they would work on improving prevention, awareness, and reporting procedures around sexual assault in schools. With less than 2 weeks until Donald Trump takes office, the U.S. president-elect has made claims to land in multiple countries. Sonia Schlesinger has more.
In a press conference at his Mar-a-Lago golf resort, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump spoke about potentially broadening U.S. territory, making threats to seize Greenland and the Panama Canal.
Your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security.
Leaders in both Panama and Denmark, which controls Greenland, emphasized that while they value the United States as an ally, these are sovereign territories and not up for the taking.
Quiero expresar de manera precisa que cada metro cuadrado del Canal de Panamá y su zona adyacente es de Panamá y lo seguirá siendo. La soberanía e independencia de nuestro país no son negociables.
Jeg vil selvfølgelig gerne knytte nogle ord til den diskussion, der pågår lige nu omkring Grønland, og gøre det meget klart, at set med den danske regeringsbriller, så er Grønland grønlændernes. Det er et meget, meget stolt folkefærd. Det er et sprog, det er en kultur, det er en befolkning, som er sin egen. Og som formand for Naalakkersuisut, Moshi Ede i øvrigt har sagt, så er Grønland ikke til salg.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., has arrived in Greenland. He says he is visiting as a tourist, rather than representing his father on the trip.
No, we're not meeting any politicians here, so that's not on the schedule. We're just here as tourists.
President-elect Trump's comments follow recent statements he's made about the U.S.'s more immediate neighbors. He has suggested changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and has repeatedly referred to Canada as the 51st state in the U.S. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded to that assertion on X. Trump spent much of his first term promoting non-interventionist foreign policies, and plans to continue, saying he wants to pull out of NATO. Some say his new claims to land in the Americas are in line with his other America First plans.
So I think this is still consistent in terms of his logic that he is a unilateralist. He will decide whether I want to intervene or not. But even with that expansion, I think the idea of the expansion is still limited to Western Hemisphere. You know, you talk about Greenland, you talk about Canada, even Panama in Central America. It's not like in Asia or in Middle East.
Since first taking office in 2016, Trump has been known for making incendiary remarks. Some of his plans have come to pass, while others have not. With only 2 weeks until his inauguration, leaders in the Americas and around the world will be watching closely to see how his expansionist rhetoric develops. James Lin and Sonia Schlesinger for TaiwanPlus.
Social media giant Meta is scrapping independent fact-checking, saying it aims to encourage more speech on its platforms. The owner of Instagram and Facebook says it will now rely on users to write community notes as factual corrections to posts. The company will also reduce curbs on discussions around contentious topics, including gender identity and immigration. CEO Mark Zuckerberg said in a video announcement that the fact-checkers had become too politically biased and there was too much censorship. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who had previously been banned by the platforms, praised the changes.
Well, I watched their news conference, and I thought it was a very good news conference. I think they've come a long way. Meta, Facebook.
The move comes less than 2 weeks before Trump takes office for the second time on January 20th. Coming up after the break, tensions between U.S. and China grow as the U.S. Defense Department blacklists several Chinese companies.
The brands you know, some have untold journeys. The things you're familiar with, some have stories you've never heard. These brands bringing you a comfortable life, sweet memories, everyday convenience, and the enjoyment of good health. All come from the same place.
The Made in Taiwan story, every Monday, 8:15 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories from Peru and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app. Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News.
South Korea's anti-corruption agency has given more time to detain impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. A court reissued a warrant for his arrest after the first one expired on Monday night. Authorities want to detain Yoon after he refused to appear for questioning over his martial law decree in December. They've been blocked by the Presidential Security Service, which has fortified Yoon's residence with barricades and barbed wire. It's unknown how long the new warrant will be valid. Thai authorities have confirmed that a Chinese actor found in Myanmar after going missing in Thailand was a victim of human trafficking. Local media reports say the actor Wang Xing is now, quote, safe after being returned to Thailand. Wang was reported missing in the north near the country's border with Myanmar. Police say Wang was told there was a casting call there, but instead he was made to scam other Chinese people.
นายชิงชิงเนี่ยได้ใช้วีแชทพูดคุยกับทางคนจีนด้วยกันซึ่งในวีแชทเนี่ยเมื่อกี้ผมดูนะครับเขาก็จะเขียนว่าคำว่า GMM Gammy แล้วก็เป็นชื่อของคนจีนคนที่กล่าวอ้างที่เป็นคนจีนเนี่ยก็ได้อ้างว่าจะพามาแคสติ้งที่เมืองไทยนะครับ
Wang's case was widely shared on Chinese social media, raising concerns it could threaten tourism to Thailand from China. The United States has blacklisted several Chinese firms it says are connected to China's military. That includes industry titan Kaohsiung Shipping Group and tech giant Tencent. Beijing has responded by saying the U.S. is treating Chinese companies unfairly and disrupting the international economy. To learn more about why the U.S. decided to blacklist these companies, Alec McDonald spoke to Professor Jia Ian Chong.
Ian, why did the United States right now blacklist several Chinese companies they say are connected to the Chinese military apparatus?
So the blacklisting, I think, is part of this ongoing tit for tat between the U.S. and the PRC. Now, on the U.S. side, I mean, it's a bit slow in coming. The PRC had already much earlier, put on restrictions on U.S. and other foreign firms operating within the PRC, including logistic firms, especially firms that deal with data. So in some regards, this effort by the Biden administration to put more restrictions on PRC firms, especially in the maritime sector, is a response to what the PRC had done earlier. I expect the PRC will probably retaliate, but that's part of the ongoing relationship right now.
How much will this blacklist affect China's military capabilities in developing aerospace and naval technology?
So I don't think there'll be much of an effect. Now, the PRC already has many advantages in its maritime shipbuilding capacity. It has many advantages in its aerospace technology, and it can now get a lot more technology from Russia at any rate. But what the Biden administration's restrictions do is they prevent U.S. technology from potentially being used against the United States and U.S. allies. So that's, I guess it's about doing what the U.S. can to safeguard itself rather than to really stymie what the PRC can do.
The three companies on this list, which the United States businesses already do extensive business with, are Tencent, CATL, Tesla's battery provider, and Kaohsiung Shipping Group. Why did the U.S. blacklist these companies specifically?
So Tencent and Kaohsiung, I mean, one reason is because Tencent, as a online service provider, it collects a lot of personal information, and the U.S. government has for some time now been quite wary of that. In the same way, actually, that Beijing is wary of U.S. tech firms sucking up PRC personal data of people from the PRC. Now, with Kaohsiung, they're a big shipping firm. And I guess one of the concerns here is that Kaohsiung and its vessels have been implicated in supporting an exercise of supporting PLA military operations. So I guess the idea here is to put some restriction, to give some punishment for actors that might be aiding and abetting the People's Liberation Army in the event that there is some sort of confrontation or crisis involving the United States or its allies or key partners. Now on CATL, the battery from this I guess is part of the ongoing, mutual sort of efforts to get at each other's tech between the PRC and the United States. And in that regard, the fact that CATL is Tesla's provider suggests how hard it really is to disentangle a lot of these economic relationships. But nonetheless, the U.S. government is going to try.
That was Jia Ian Chong from the National University of Singapore. Soldiers who survived injuries on the battlefields of Ukraine are healing spiritually at a holy site in Greece. Through faith, they say they're finding peace after almost 3 years of war. Bryn Thomas reports.
A 1,000-kilometer bus trip brought Ivan from Lviv, Ukraine to northern Greece. On the sacred slopes of Mount Athos, he and other veterans are seeking peace after enduring life-changing injuries in the largest war fought in Europe in 70 years.
Психологічно я до цього був готовий, тому що я розумів, на що я йду, які в мене великі ризики.
Ivan and 22 other veterans, scarred physically or emotionally in Russia's invasion of Ukraine, are on a 4-day pilgrimage organized by Ukrainian authorities. The trip aimed at healing soldiers deeply affected by the ongoing war.
Звісно, після того, як відвідав сам Афон, неодноразово відчув благодать, відчув Боже благословення, бо ми розуміємо, що Боже благословення і Божа благодать набагато більше реабілітує героя, воїна, ніж фізична або психологічна реабілітація вдома.
A UNESCO World Heritage Site, Mount Athos is a spiritual home for the Orthodox Church. Since the 10th century, it has been a pilgrimage destination available to men only.
Багато військових сьогодні страждає після подій, які відбулися за 3 роки. Є багато військових, які страждають від різних недуг, є поранені, і треба їх реабілітувати.
Mount Athos has long-standing ties to Russian Orthodoxy and hosted President Putin in 2016 to mark 1,000 years of Russian monastic presence. But Greece, a NATO member, supports Ukraine in the war, straining its ties with Moscow. Ivan and his comrades visited only Greek Orthodox sites where they took communion in incense-filled chapels overlooking the Aegean Sea. Ivan's fellow soldiers carried him over cobblestones and up the narrow stairs of the monasteries where he found strength in his faith.
Звісно, за перемогу, за товаришів, які там, і товаришів, які загинули.
On Mount Athos, Ivan and his comrades seek more than rest. They seek spiritual healing from the scars of a war that's ravaged their homeland. Through faith and prayer, they are guided towards peace and strength by a grace that transcends their wounds. Patrick Chen and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
How do you prepare for the toughest marathon in the world? Well, Sandy Chi went to meet a Taiwanese ultramarathon runner who is doing just that.
Pushing himself to the limit, making sure he can run for hundreds of kilometers. This is 38-year-old Tommy Chen, Taiwan's elite ultramarathon runner, who has claimed the top spot in several international ultramarathons over the years. And now he's gearing up for his next race. The 2025 6633 Arctic Ultra is 612 kilometers long and is set to take place on February 27th. The race is known as the toughest, coldest and windiest competition, with temperatures that can drop to negative 50 degrees Celsius.
第一个是平衡完赛，因为风险很高，完赛几率30%，那没有亚洲选手完赛过，所以我希望就是先以完赛为目标。
To get in peak shape for the Arctic Ultra, he did not train alone. Starting from January 1st, Chen ran from Taipei in the north of Taiwan down to the southern port city of Kaohsiung, traversing over 412 kilometers in 8 days. As Chen made his way down south from the capital, dozens of runners and bikers joined him each day. They were running with him to show their support, even if they didn't go the whole way.
因为我觉得非常有趣，而且那是一种热血的感觉。就是每天只要而且我每天只有睡4个小时，因为我一想到说要出来可以追着夜魔跑，我都觉得超开心的。
Some say they learned a valuable lesson running with Chen.
坚强的毅力，自律的功夫做得非常好，真的没什么休息，很少跑者有这种毅力跟精神。
During the 8 days, Those who could not join Chen supported him via messages and tracked his location. Some supporters and friends even showed up at his final stop.
我来等彦博一起到终点，因为对我来讲，他是精神支柱跟精神力量，然后感觉就是看到他就可以工作上面会有很大的活力。
This is the second time for Chen to train along with other runners. He did the same in 2023. However, this year he says it felt different.
就我吓到，我不知道人怎么这么多，突然就进来，然后人家就很笑，就开玩笑讲说像《阿甘正传》台湾版，你会有很多的，除了 support 还有 responsibility， 你会有一些责任。那这个责任的话不是对自己，而是很多人因为去支持你，所以你其实是带着大家的希望，然后一直去往前推进的。
Throughout the over 400-kilometer route, Chen often felt the urge to give up. However, those feelings gradually faded away.
前4天的时候觉得说，我靠，我怎么搞那么痛苦啊？干嘛这个样子？可是后来又转念啦，做这样训练，我可以，我到台湾每一个不同的角落，就是即使多绕了一点路，如果你可以去欣赏周遭的更多风景，其实那也是寻找不同的快乐。这样。
Chen now has less than 2 months to go until his ultramarathon in the Arctic Circle. He will next train in the mountains of Taiwan to adapt to the cold and frost he will face during the race. He hopes to leave his mark on history to be the very first person from Asia to complete the Arctic Ultra. Eason Chen and Sani Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, join us in Havana for a masterclass where Cuban dancers recreate Michael Jackson's iconic Thriller. I'm Joyce Sin. Take care and see you next time.